topic, very short topic, distraction osteogenesis. It was given by Gavril Elizarov. So all the principles of distraction osteogenesis are Elizarov's principles. Okay, so that is the first thing you have to remember. Second thing is, it is right to call it distraction histiogenesis, because even if we do it for bone regeneration, it is not just the bone which is stretched and reformed, it is also the all tissues. Histo means tissues, all the attached soft tissues like muscles, nerves, skin, blood vessels, everything is stretched and everything is formed. So it is better to call it distraction histiogenesis. To understand distraction osteogenesis and to understand bone healing, we will quickly discuss the types of bone healing. Remember, this is also important in fractures. So, understand bone healing very, very nicely. Bone healing can be of two types: primary healing and secondary healing. Primary healing is less common, secondary healing is more common. Primary healing is happens when there is absolute immobility between segments, number 1, and when there is minimal gap less than 1 millimeter. When the gap between two fractured segments is less than 1 millimeter and they are absolutely immobile. So this will happen only when there is compression between the segments. So compression osteogenesis, which was used earlier for fracture healing, that is what causes primary healing of bone. Secondary healing, on the other hand, happens when there is micromobility. Micromobility means physiological mobility, not absolute mobility. Absolute mobility will cause non-union. Physiological or micromobility will cause secondary healing, and when there is a minimal gap between the segments. Here there is no gap, and here there is a minimal gap between the segments. All right. Earlier, it was thought that only primary healing will give good quality of bone healing. Now we know that even secondary healing will give as good as a quality of bone healing. Primary healing happens by direct bone formation. There is no callus stage. That is the third difference between primary and secondary healing of bone. Whereas secondary healing happens with formation of callus. What is callus? Callus is nothing but a hyaline cartilage. Okay, so before formation of bony tissue, there is a formation of cartilaginous tissue. After that cartilaginous tissue, it undergoes ossification. So in primary healing, there is no callus stage, there is direct bone formation. Whereas in secondary healing, there is a callus stage or cartilaginous stage, after which there is bone formation. Now, primary healing and secondary healing, now you know what is the difference. Primary healing is also divided into two types: contact healing and gap healing. Contact healing and gap healing both are types of primary union or primary healing. Okay, what is the difference? In contact healing, the gap is less than zero point 0.3 millimeters. It is very, very less gap, hardly any gap. Okay, less than 0.3 millimeters. Whereas in gap healing, which is a type of primary healing, the gap is there but only 0.3 to 1 millimeter. Mobility is not there. There is absolute immobility in both. But in contact healing, the gap is also less than 0.3 millimeter. And in gap healing, there is a light gap of 0.3 to 1 millimeter. So in contact healing, what happens is there is formation of bruise. What is bruise? Bruise are bone resorption units. Okay, these are like these cutting cones. These kind of cutting cones which are formed. These cutting cones are also known as bone resorption units or bruise. Okay, now cutting cones are led by osteoclasts. Osteoclasts which resorb the bone. So these are like the highway makers. So there is a fracture, there is a gap between two bones. These osteoclasts will form a highway. They will form a path. Behind that path, on the lagging edge, there is osteoblasts. So the osteoclast will cut the bone and osteoblast will lay the bone. So the fracture has happened like this. The fracture has caused a discontinuity between first and second segment. Now these bruise will come. The distance is so less that the osteoblast and osteoclast can jump directly from one side to the other side. Okay? From one fractured bone segment to the other fractured bone segment. So, to recreate the lamellar pattern of bone, the bruise will come, the osteoclast will cut across the segment and create a highway, and osteoblast will directly lay down lamellar bone. Why direct lamellar bone? Because the gap is very, very minimal. Directly they can jump, osteoclast can jump from one fractured bone to other fractured bone, create a highway, and on that highway, parallel to the existing lamellae in the same direction, the osteoblasts will form a lamellar bone. So that is the quickest, fastest method of healing. If the gap is 0.3 to 1 millimeter, gap healing. Again, same thing is happening. Bruise are being formed, but can the bruise jump from one segment to another? No, there is slight gap and they are unable to jump. So what the body does is body forms woven bone. It doesn't form cartilage here because it is primary healing. It will form woven bone in opposite direction. First, woven bone will be formed just to close that gap. The purpose of woven bone formation is just to close that minimal gap which is there between the first and the second segment. So this woven bone will first be formed and the lamella of the woven bone will be perpendicular to the direction of existing lamellae. This is the direction of existing lamellae. And woven bone is formed perpendicular to it. Why? So that bruise can jump from one segment to other segment. So now once that gap is closed by woven bone, now the osteoclast and osteoblast form the cutting cone, form the bruise, and they jump from one segment to another and same thing happens. Again there is formation of lamellar bone. So this is slightly longer. Instead of direct lamellar bone, there is first woven bone formation and then lamellar bone formation in the same direction as the existing lamellae. So these both are types of primary healing. There is no callus formation, direct bone formation. Now we come to a slightly slower type of healing, which is the secondary healing of bone. Now here there is some gap, there is some micro mobility. So to close that gap, to stop the mobility, body first forms cartilage. Okay, instead of woven bone, there is enough gap. So what does happen? Beneath the periosteum, there is a bleeding. There is hematoma. Then the hematoma organizes and forms a granulation tissue. Forms a granulation tissue. The granulation tissue organizes into what is known as a callus. What is callus? Callus is nothing but hyaline cartilage. Here, Dr. Gavril Ilizarov used his mind. He thought that, osteoblasts will form bone at the rate of 1 to 2 millimeters per day. But what if I stretch this callus in the same rate at the rate of 1 millimeter per day? Will the length of that callus increase? So he did that experiment using his distractors and he saw that yes, if you can use this stage, this callus stage of bone healing, and you can stretch the callus at a particular rate of 1 millimeter per day in average adults, then you can actually lengthen the bone because this callus is a spongy tissue. You can see that this is a spongy tissue. It's a cartilaginous tissue, and we all know that cartilage has the capacity to regenerate. So he stretched the callus till the time he wanted, till the length he wanted, and then he again let it set. He let it consolidate, he let the callus ossify. So that callus ossified into woven bone, first into woven bone and then into lamellar bone. And this conversion of callus into woven bone into lamellar bone, this bony remodeling kept happening for a long time. Depending on the muscle attachment, depending on the forces, this remodeling kept happening for a very long time. So, this is how in secondary healing there is no direct bone formation. There is first bleeding, blood organized into granulation tissue forms callus, which is hyaline cartilage, callus forms bone, woven bone, then lamellar bone. And in this callus stage, you can stretch at a particular rate and distract your bones. So, instead of a fracture which happens by accident, the surgeon puts a cut which is known as osteotomy. That is the difference between fracture and osteotomy. Fracture happens by accident, it happens by itself. Whereas a fracture which the surgeon does for a proper distraction, we don't call it a fracture, we call it an osteotomy. Okay? So that is exactly what happens in osteotomy, in distraction osteogenesis. Why do we do it? Any patient who has gross deformities, congenital deformities, cleft deformities, TMJ related deformities, pathology related deformities, any deformity which needs generation of bone, you will use distraction osteogenesis. What are the stages? The 5 stages you have to know. 5 stages are: first is the osteotomy stage. Obviously, first you will put that surgical cut. This is the cut, surgical cut, usually done under GA. You put that cut, you separate the bones, you fix the distractor, you try that in the OT whether the distractor is running properly or not. You create a slight gap between the segments so that secondary healing of bone can happen. And all this is the surgical phase, which is known as osteotomy. Second is your latency stage. Because if you start distracting immediately, your callus is not formed. The callus will take some days, 3, 5, or 7 days, depending on the age of the patient. If the patient is too young, like an infant who is undergoing distraction for peri-Robin sequence, you might not wait for more than 24 hours because their healing is very, very rapid. Callus formation is very fast. Same thing done in an adult, in a 30, 40, 50-year-old male or female. The latency stage will be 3, 5, or 7 days, depending on what is the healing ability. So, there the healing will take time. The callus formation, the bleeding will consolidate to granulation tissue will form callus. So, it will take time. So, till that time, you have to wait. And that waiting stage is known as latency stage. Again, very important MCQ comes from here. What is the amount of latency stage you have to use in different age? So, in a child, in an infant, latency stage will be very short. In an adult, it will be long. Third thing that you have to do is distraction. Now you have to use your distractor device and use it at a particular rhythm, and you have to distract till you want to increase the length of your bone. Okay, in this stage, you have to take care of the rate of distraction, which is normally 1 millimeters per day in an adult, 1.5 to 2 millimeters per day in a child. Second thing is a rhythm of distraction. Rhythm means how frequently you are breaking that rate. Okay, so for a 1 per day distraction, you can do a 0.5 millimeters 12 hourly, 0.5 BD, or you can do 0.25 millimeters QID 4 times in a day. All right, so that is the rhythm, how frequently you are doing it. And third is the vector of distraction. What is vector of distraction? Vector means the direction. Okay, so if I am doing it in one direction, it is univector distraction. If I am doing a multiple directions, like I'm increasing the length also, I'm increasing the width also, it is a multi-vector distraction. All right, so these are the properties of distraction phase or distraction stage. Then after distraction, the fourth stage is the consolidation stage. After you've done a distraction, you don't remove your distractor immediately because still it is a callus. It is not ossified into a proper bone. So you have to wait. All right, how much will you wait? Consolidation is equal to 3 times the amount of distraction. Or broadly speaking, 6 weeks. 1.5 to 2 weeks is the amount of distraction we usually do, but ideally it should be 3 times the amount of distraction. So I've done a 10 distraction at the rate of 1 millimeter per day. So I've done a distraction of 10 millimeters in 10 days. So my consolidation period will be 10 into 3, 30 days. So I will wait for 30 days and I will allow my callus to ossify. I will do my x-rays. I will watch whether the callus has cortications or not, whether there is bone formation or not. And when the consolidation, I'm sure that there is cortical outlines formed in the callus, then I will remove my distractor. Before that, I will not remove the distractor. Otherwise, the callus will sag. The callus is a soft tissue. You will wait till formation of hard tissue. Last stage is a remodeling stage, which keeps happening for over 1 year. Slowly, body itself causes remodeling of the new formed bone. All right, so these are the 5 stages of distraction, 5 stages of callostasis, which you should all know. Coming to vector of distraction, like I said, vector means the direction of formation of new bone. If I am using my mandible, putting a cut like this and using a simple linear distractor, I will cause movement of my mandible in one direction, because here I have the joint. This part is not going to move. This part is going to come down. So in one direction, I'm going to move my callus. Okay, so this is called univector distraction or a univector distractor. A single linear mandibular distractor is a univector distractor. But if I do a similar procedure, if I put a cut here and fix a device like this is a multi-vector distractor. Most commonly used asked question from osteogenesis is a image of a multi-vector distractor. What it will do is, with this pin, with this arm, you can increase the length of the ramus superior inferiorly. Using this arm, if you turn this key, you can increase the length of the body anterior posteriorly. And using this pitch screw here, if you turn this screw, you can even turn the mandible inside or outside. So, superior inferior direction, anterior posterior direction, and even mediolateral direction. In 3 directions, you can increase you can modify the direction of your distraction. That is why this device is very, very popularly used and it is known as a multi-vector distractor. Remember, this is used only and only in the mandible. It cannot be used in the maxilla. Multi-vector distraction very commonly done in mandible. Types of devices, we all know, if the key or the turning point is within the oral cavity, it is an intraoral distractor, like something like this. Okay, if it comes out of the skin and you have to distract it from outside, it is known as an extraoral distractor or an external distractor. Like you can see in this girl, both are fixed. We had space intraorally on one side, so we fixed it intraorally because it's a cosmetic problem. The patient has to stay with the distractor for 1.5 to 2.5, 3 months. So as concealed as it can be, it is better. So this is an intraoral distractor which comes out from the oral cavity. You can turn the key from intraorally only. And the other side, because of the direction of the mandible, the direction of the distractor had to be like this, and the vector came out of the skin. So we couldn't put it intraorally, it had to be extraoral. So this is external distractor and this is internal distractor. Anything which comes out internally, intraorally is internal distractor, but much more common is the external distractor. Coming to the focus of distraction can be divided into monofocal distraction and bifocal or trifocal distraction. Bifocal and trifocal distraction are together known as transport distraction. Why? Why are they known as transport distraction? Because here we create a transport disc. Monofocal distraction means this is my mandible. Its width is less. I will put an osteotomy cut here. I will distract my mandible with on both directions. I will split. There is only one area where some activity is going on, one focus of activity. So monofocal distraction. There is no transport disc here, just a simple cut and split, just like we saw here In this case, simple osteotomy and stretching the mandible, creation of new bone. This is known as monofocal distraction. There is no transport disc here. Other type is a transport distraction. Here what we are doing is, we are, suppose there is a defect, there is an ameloblastoma here. Okay, and because of ameloblastoma, I have put a cut. I have resected my mandible. Okay, there is a defect here. Now I have my mandible in two pieces. How will I join my mandible? I can't do this kind of distraction. What I will do is, I will generate a transport disc. I will put a cut here, and I will take this transport disc on the other side. I will distract this full disc, not push the bones apart, but I will use this disc and move it to the other side. So as it moves ahead, it forms new bone behind it. And once it reaches on the other side, I will compress the segments and I will put plates here. So this is known as bifocal distraction. Bifocal distraction means one transport disc. Single transport disc taking from one place to the other place. Bifocal, two focus, one starting point, one ending point, one distraction point, one docking point. So this is known as bifocal distraction, one transport disc. Trifocal distraction, two transport discs. Suppose the ameloblastoma that I have resected is very big. If it is causing a large part of my mandible to be cut, this much, then I don't think one transport disc will be enough to create the new mandible. So I will take two transport discs from both sides, move them towards each other. So one focus is here, one focus is here, and one focus is going to be that midpoint where both the transport discs come and meet. So this is known as trifocal distraction. 3 points, 1 point, 1 point, 2 points, bifocal distraction. 1, 2, 3. 3 points of activity, trifocal distraction. So remember, bifocal distraction, one transport disc. Trifocal distraction, two transport discs. These are examples of transport distraction. Very commonly we use it in pathology cases. Also, very commonly we use it in TMJ ankylosis cases. We know that in Caban's protocol, we can use either CCG or distraction osteogenesis. How do we use it? In exactly the same way. This is the arthroplasty. This is the gap that I have created in the mandible. Now I have to close that gap. What will I do? This is the residual ramus I have, right? This is the residual ramus that is there with me. So in this residual ramus, I will create a transport disc posteriorly. Piche se I will take this much bone and I will use it as a transport disc. I will fix my distractor here, fix the other part on the ramus, take the distractor and turn the key 1 millimeter per day. So what will happen is, it will take the transport disc up till it goes and touches the glenoid fossa. Till it comes here, reaches the glenoid fossa, and behind it, it has formed a completely new bone. So this is known as transport disc distraction osteogenesis, TDDO of the ramal condylar unit, to create a new condyle known as neocondylogenesis. This is neocondylogenesis, generation of a new condyle using transport disc distraction osteogenesis. This is the full case, no mouth opening, proper gap arthroplasty done, distraction is done, distractor is used 1 mm per day for the amount of days till the time it docks to the glenoid fossa, mouth opening is achieved, and this is TDDO. Now this is another case of trifocal distraction. A female with ameloblastoma of mandible in the anterior mandibular region, resection is done. One transport disc is created from the right side, another transport disc is created from the left side. They are used, put in a rail, transported towards each other. You can see how beautifully new bone is being laid down posteriorly, distally, and once they reach in the midline, the two segments are fixed together using mini plates. Alright, so this is an example of trifocal distraction. This is how we use bifocal and trifocal distraction in pathology and TMJ ankylosis cases. Next is another device which is known as a RED. This is known as a rigid external distractor. What is a rigid external distractor? It is a distractor which is used for mid-phase distraction. So you can do a Lefort 1 osteotomy and distract the whole mid-phase in the Lefort 1 level. You can do a Lefort 2 osteotomy and distract the whole mid-phase using the Lefort 2 level in that pyramidal segment. Or in severe cases like this one where there is either Cruzon syndrome or Apert syndrome, you can do proper craniomaxillary disjunction doing a Lefort 3 osteotomy and take the whole face, whole mid-face out depending on what is required. So this kind of device, it can be asked as image-based question. Remember, it's a RED device, which stands for rigid external distractor, used for mid-phase distraction. Any level, Lefort 1, high Lefort 1, Lefort 2, Lefort 3, whichever level, depending on what is the case. Another example of distraction is SARPE. What is SARPE? SARPE is surgically assisted rapid palatal expansion. Okay, instead of doing a dental expansion like the one that Hyrax does, after the sutures have fused, you have to expand the maxilla. If you do it with orthognathic surgery, it's a very unstable procedure, like we've just read in orthognathic. Widening of maxilla with orthognathic surgery, what it will cause is you will have to do a Lefort osteotomy, you will have to do a midline osteotomy and split the maxilla. There is no connect between the two segments and it's a very unstable surgery. So instead of splitting it in one go using orthognathic surgery, you fix a distractor there and 1 millimeter per day start distracting. That is known as surgically assisted. Why surgically assisted? Because you've done a Lefort 1 osteotomy and a palatal split. Rapid palatal expansion. The palatal expansion that a Hyrax does is slow palatal expansion. The one we will do after surgery with a cut there, after the sutural growth is completed, is known as rapid palatal expansion. You can see how beautifully this narrow maxillary arch is very nicely expanded using a SARPE. Now the orthodontist can align all the teeth properly and bring the teeth into occlusion. So this is known as a palatal distractor. Similarly, there are alveolar distractors, like you can see this maxillary alveolar distractor, which is used to increase the width of maxilla. Suppose their extraction is done long time back and you need to put an implant, but the width is not there. So you can distract that much alveolar bone using an alveolar distractor. And when the width is reached, you can put nice wide implants. Similarly, in mandible, a lot of times height of the mandible is lost. The alveolar bone is lost. So what you can do is again kind of a transport distractor. You can take a segment of bone from the basal mandible. You can distract it upwards, create a good height of the mandible and put your implant. So as a pre-prosthetic procedure also, you can do distraction osteotomies for alveolar distraction. Okay, so this finishes our conventional orthognathic surgery. Now, let me also tell you that we use distraction osteogenesis very commonly to open up the airway. All right, why is airway important to us as maxillofacial surgeons? Because lot of times children who are born with retrognathic mandible and small mandible, they have high chances of having obstructive sleep apnea. Okay, what is obstructive sleep apnea? Obstructive sleep apnea is a syndrome, it's a collection of disorders because of many reasons. If there is episodes of apnea and hypopnea in sleep there is poor muscle tone, the structures fall back, the tongue falls back, and if there is no space in the posterior airway, that is the upper airway, pharyngeal airways, then there is a complete cessation of airflow either in the nasopharyngeal region or in the oropharyngeal region, and that causes episodes of apnea and hypopnea. Apnea means cessation of bleeding, hypopnea means reduction in oxygen saturation level. And both these things, if they are happening again and again multiple times in the night, then it is known as obstructive sleep apnea. Okay, what it will cause? It will cause a patient to snore. The patient will not have a good night's sleep. He will always be tired in the day. There will be daytime somnolence. He will be just sleeping here and there all throughout the day. And slowly, there will be behavior issues, there will be blood pressure issues, there will be pulmonary hypertension, and so many cardiogenic issues. So, obstructive sleep apnea is a very common finding in 2 or 3 pathologies seen by maxillofacial surgeons like Perry-Robin sequence and TMJ ankylosis. Both these ankylosis, both of them are very commonly associated with OSA, and the cause is a small mandible. It can be caused because of a nasopharyngeal tumor, because of enlarged adenoids, because of large tongue, because of so many other things. We are not concerned about the other things. We are concerned about how OSA can be caused by a small mandible. Okay, so in PRS, there is a very small retrognathic mandible. In ankylosis, there is no growth of the mandible causing a retrognathic small mandible, and both these are very big risk factors for development of obstructive sleep apnea. And here in distraction, you will first do a mandibular distraction in both these cases, in severe ankylosis cases in childhood and in severe PRS cases. You will not treat the disease first, you will correct the airway first. All right, very quickly I'm going to show you a normal airway and a OSA patient's airway. So if you see here, this is a normal straight profile, nose, upper lip, lower lip. And this is the nasopharyngeal airway. You can see very nice and clear. This is behind the tongue region, oropharyngeal airway. Epiglottis is there and trachea. Very nicely, this patient has a good, clean airway, non-obstructed airway. Okay, so this is normal. Whereas look at this child. This is a CT of a child with PRS, with Perry-Robin sequence. I would be really happy if this is his nasal outline, this is his upper lip. If this was his lower lip, I would have been really happy. Okay, but this is not where his lower lip is lying. His lower lip is actually lying here. And this is the amount of airway which is lost. This is the mandible. The mandible should have been here. This is where the mandible is. So the tongue has no space. Where will the tongue lie? Normally the tongue lies in that lingual space between the mandibular arches. Right? This is the mandible and the tongue lies in the floor of the mouth. But when the mandible is so retrognathic, where will the tongue go? So the tongue has no space to go. So where is my airway here? My airway is, okay, nasal airway is fine. But this is my soft palate. There is no airway here. Absolute block of airway. Only in the laryngopharynx here, there is normal airway. So here there is a complete block of airway, especially when the child is supine. The child is lying down, when he's asleep, when the motor tone is lost. Okay, so this is what causes obstructive sleep apnea. I will just redraw it for all of you so that you can have the annotated PPT. This is the mandible, this is your tongue, and this is the blocked airway. All right, this is again another lateral ceph of a patient with TMJ ankylosis. You can see there is ankylotic bone here, full ankylotic bone, and it is a childhood ankylosis. So what has childhood ankylosis done? If it is adult ankylosis, that means the patient is fully grown. Okay, now there is fusion of bone here. So there is no changes in growth, no changes in development of mandible. But if it is a childhood ankylosis, it causes growth restriction. So this should have been my normal mandibular outline, normal maxilla, normal lip. This should have been my normal mandible. Okay, upper lip, lower lip, and mandible. But this is where my mandible is lying. And you look at the amount of airway restriction it has done. So whenever there is a severe OSA, like in cases of Perry-Robin sequence and in cases of TMJ ankylosis, the first step is always open the airway. And what is the method of opening the airway? The method is mandible distraction. That is the first step that you will do, distraction of the mandible anteriorly. Alright, so remember this. Whenever you are doing orthognathic surgery, whenever you are doing TMJ ankylosis, whenever you are doing PRS, If it is a threat to the airway, if it is a serious threat to the airway, always manage the airway first. Do your mandibular distraction, open up the airway, make some space for the tongue, open up the upper airway, oropharyngeal airway, by doing a mandibular distraction. Right? So that completes everything in distraction osteogenesis.